In this episode, you'll discover what happens when you finally climb the mountain you've spent your whole life scaling, only to realize the view from the top isn't what you've hoped for. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast, a podcast helping women in career and life transitions achieve clarity on their next steps so they can transform uncertainty into an energizing next chapter. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you're wondering what's next in your career or life, you are in the right place. Through solo and guest episodes, you'll gain practical tips, tools, and inspiration to help you uncover blocks, gain confidence, and be, do, and have what you want. I rediscovered myself after the age of 50, and I know you can too. It's my time now to help you do just that. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Midlife Reinvention Podcast. I'm your host, Kavita Ahuja, and founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. If you've ever thought, I should be happier than this episode is for you. In this conversation, you'll discover why the success, stress, and burnout you're feeling may actually be the signal, not the setback, that it's time for change. How achievement can quietly disconnect you from your deeper purpose, and how to begin the climb back, not toward more success, but towards yourself. Because what if the real goal isn't reaching the top, but feeling fulfilled once you get there? Let's dive in. I've spoken to more and more women lately who said something like this. I've worked so hard my whole life. I've done everything right, but I feel like I've lost myself. Maybe you can relate to this. And this is what I want to discuss today because it seems to be becoming more and more prevalent. You've spent decades building your career, caring for your family, showing up for everyone, and you've done it beautifully. You've been responsible, reliable, the one people can count on. And now finally you've made it. You've reached the top of your mountain, the title, the recognition, the security. But when you get there, something feels off. You're supposed to feel proud, accomplished, and content, but instead there's a quiet ache that says, is this all there is? One of my clients recently shared her story with me, and I wanted to share it with you today. After nearly 2 decades in a high-level leadership role, she said, Kavita, I've reached the pinnacle of my career, the title, the money, the respect, but it's not bringing me joy anymore. I've built a beautiful life for everyone else, and somewhere along the way, I've lost myself. Her story is so familiar, not just because of the career success, but because of what came with it. Years of caring for aging parents and constant pressure to perform, and an inner drive to be the best at everything. She said, I thought reaching the top would make me happy, but all I feel is exhausted. And that word exhausted is one I hear over and over again. Because burnout isn't just about being tired. It's the soul's way of saying, you've been running on empty for far too long. It's your body whispering to you, or sometimes shouting, that something needs to change. So here's the thing about stress. In small doses, it helps us to perform. This is level 1 of catabolic energy, and you've heard me talk about this before. But this type of catabolic energy or negative energy actually helps us push through stressful situations. But when it becomes constant, when your body never truly relaxes, that's when it crosses the line into burnout. So burnout doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It's actually kind of a slow erosion. One late night at a time, one I'll rest later at a time, and one I can handle it at a time. And then one day you wake up and your body feels different. The fatigue doesn't lift. You start forgetting things. You feel detached from work, from joy, and from yourself. Maybe your doctor even tells you you've got high blood pressure, and maybe you're gaining weight or not sleeping well or living on caffeine just to keep up. And that's not a character flaw, that's biology. When your stress hormones stay elevated for too long, your nervous system forgets how to rest. You start living in fight or flight mode, even when you're just sitting at your desk. And over time, that stress just doesn't affect your work. It also affects everything, your health, your patients, your relationships. And you start canceling plans. Maybe you're saying you're too tired. And you look at things that used to excite you and you feel nothing. And begin to wonder when your life became about coping instead of creating. But what I've learned is that burnout isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's your body saying, you cannot keep living this way. So if you're feeling this way right now, the stress, the overwhelm, and the fatigue, please know it's not a failure, it's feedback. And that feedback might just be the start of your next chapter. But many of us ignore that feedback for years. I know I did. We tell ourselves we'll slow down after this quarter, after this project, after the kids are grown, after retirement. And those months turn into years, and years can turn into decades. And before we know it, we've become experts at postponing our own happiness. The cost of waiting is really steep. Every year you spend in burnout chips away at your health and your joy and your confidence. I've seen many women develop chronic illnesses, lose marriages, even lose themselves, not because they didn't care, but because they cared too much about keeping everyone else okay. And maybe the hardest truth of all is this: you can rebuild a career, you can rebuild finances, but you can't get back the years you spent living in survival mode. If you've been telling yourself it's not the right time, I want to ask you, when will it be? Because the longer you wait, my friend, the louder your stress becomes until it forces your hand. And by then, you're not making a choice from clarity, you're reacting from crisis. And you deserve better than that. After burnout cracks the surface, sometimes the guilt rushes in, and you think, I've invested too much time to change now, and people will think I've lost it if I make a change. Or what if I fail? What if I disappoint everyone? And perhaps one of the most painful questions is, have I wasted my life doing the wrong thing? But please hear this from me. You haven't wasted anything. Every project and every all nighter and every success story taught you something invaluable, and it's all transferable to whatever comes next. You don't have to give up everything, but guilt keeps us small. We call fear being practical. We confuse comfort with responsibility, and we convince ourselves that wanting more means being ungrateful. When I left my own 25-year corporate career, I wrestled with the same fears. I told myself I should just be thankful. Why rock the boat? But gratitude and growth can coexist. Take it from me. You can be grateful for what got you here and still know that you're meant for more. As I've often shared here, every reinvention, every transition begins with 3 stages. The first is a trigger, the second is the in between questioning phase, and the third phase is action. For many women, burnout can be the trigger. It's your mind, body, and spirit saying, pause. Then, in the second phase, comes the questioning. That's that uncomfortable, sacred time and space where you start to ask, who am I now? What do I actually want? And is this really it? And finally, the action. That's the first small, courageous step that turns awareness into momentum. If you don't do the awareness or the questioning part first, then the action sometimes just won't stick. For my client, that meant, for example, researching courses. The action she took was researching courses that she's always wanted to explore in a totally different field. For you, it might be something like saying no to something that drains you or yes to something that scares you a little bit. Maybe it's reaching out to a connection on LinkedIn and asking for an informational interview about the industry they're in because you've always wanted to pursue that industry. Or it could be planning that date night with your husband, which you've always put off because you're both too busy. Each little action, no matter how small, starts to replace stress with energy and burnout with possibility. So, how do you find that spark again? You start by asking yourself a couple of questions, actually, three questions. What used to make me feel alive that I've pushed aside? What am I naturally good at that makes me lose track of time? And what do I care deeply about in the world? And how might I use my gifts there? This is your Ikigai and your reason for being, which lives at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you value, and what the world needs. And when you begin to live from that place, something remarkable happens, not just emotionally, but energetically. We talked about the chronic stress and burnout, which creates what's called catabolic energy, which is really a low kind of contracting energy that comes from fear and frustration and fatigue. When you're living in that state, your world feels smaller. You can't see opportunities clearly. You say no to things that might actually help you. And the more that you resist change, the heavier your life begins to feel. Catabolic energy feeds on itself. It becomes a downward spiral. It drains your creativity, your problem solving abilities, even your ability to believe that something better is possible. But the moment you start reconnecting or connecting to your Ikigai, your why, you generate anabolic energy. That's expansive energy, the kind that comes from joy and passion and purpose. It's what happens when your values and your actions are finally aligned. And when that shift happens, you start to attract new possibilities. People show up, ideas flow, circumstances begin to unfold in ways that almost feel magical. But they're not magic, they're the natural result of you aligning your energy with your truth. This, my friend, has happened to me time and time again. And this is what I've seen in my clients over and over again. It's what I've experienced in my own journey. When you move from catabolic to anabolic energy, life just doesn't change, you change. You go from reacting to creating and from surviving to thriving. So if you've climbed that mountain and realized the view feels lonely, please don't see that it is a failure. See it as feedback. You have mastered success. Now it's time to master significance, the kind that comes from alignment. And yes, I know it's scary. The comfort zone that you're in or that I was in whispers, stay here. At least you know what to expect. But safety without joy isn't peace, it's quiet resignation. The most responsible thing you can do for your work and your family and yourself is to live in alignment with who you truly are. Because when you do, your stress lessens, your energy returns, and you become the calm within the storm and not the storm itself. And I promise it's not too late. You're not behind. You're right on time. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your reinvention. So if this conversation resonated with you, and if you see yourself in these words and my examples for my clients and my own examples, take it as a sign. You don't have to keep living in burnout or pretending you're fine when you're not. You don't have to wait for the next health scare or emotional crash to make a change. Through my coaching program, It's My Time Now, and my signature framework, the Pyramid of Reinvention, I help women like you transform stress and burnout into clarity and renewed purpose. We uncover your Ikigai, your reason for being, and rebuild your confidence and energy from the inside out. So, if you're a professional woman who's feeling the effects of stress and burnout, like I've described, it could be in your career and you know that something has to change. Think about it and talk to me. And visit itsmytimenowcoaching.com and let's book a free breakthrough call where we can discuss the situation you're in and what you're hoping for yourself. You can click the link in the show notes to book your complimentary breakthrough session with me because it's not too late to start again. It's just time to start being you.